This episode of Jackie's Groove is brought to you by Jambox. Jambox is a hands-free, breath-powered MIDI instrument that brings the joy of music creation to all ages and all abilities. Visit jambox.com, JAMBOXX.com.
The more music you have, the better it is. So I try to keep that perspective, and as to writing as much as possible and arranging and just, being busy on both sides, not only performing, but also the other side, which is the writing and publishing. But for the young people coming up, I know sometimes you just have to release something just to do it, but make sure you're reading the contract and you understand all the terms, because it could be, a big deal for you later on.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Hey everybody, welcome to Jackie's Groove. This is Jackie Bertoni, and it's brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network, connect to all things music. Hey guys, I'm sitting here right now. I'm listening to this amazing sound of sax that is coming from a beautiful, beautiful girl here in California, in a world that's dominated by male saxophonists. Other than Candy Dulfer, I don't know of anybody else that can play her booty off like this girl does. And so without going any further onto this, I'm going to let her talk more about her. And we're going to go for that. So with that said, I want everybody to welcome with open arms and open ears to Jackie's Groove, Jessy J. Jessy, welcome, girl.
Hey, Jackie. Good to be here with you.
Hey, man. I got to tell you, I'm a big fan. Like I said again on the before we went on, I've never played with you. But we worked long hand in hand. You've toured with most of the people I work with, the Jeff Lorbers and the like. But I want to talk more about your new release. It's a live release. I want to find out what made you go live versus going into a studio. A 10-year anniversary at Yoshi's. So with that said, you want to take us on the road with Jessy J, please?
Sure. So it's the 10-year anniversary of Tequila Moon, which is my very first studio project. And I wanted to commemorate this special event with all of my fans in a live performance. So people were able to buy tickets to the show and be part of the live recording. And we did it all in Oakland, California, January. And it was a lot of fun. We had a video crew out. They recorded all the songs. And we only did one take. So it was kind of like, it is what it is, as they say. But all the songs turned out amazing. And, thanks to my live band and the studio crew and everyone that set up the microphones and the cameras, it turned out awesome. And I'm going to be releasing it in 2 weeks on April 27th.
Write that down, people. And that's going to be available at jessyj.com and wherever music can be purchased?
Right, yeah. iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, however you listen to music, you'll be able to get it online.
I really hate when I say wherever music can be purchased. I wish I can say, go back to your local Tower Records or your Virgin Megastore and so on and so forth. But times are changing. But with that, I'm going to lead into that. Was there a person other than family or maybe even family that, that was your mentor growing up in the music business that kind of led you to believe that you could actually make a good living at this versus being a weekend player? Was there a person or persons involved with that?
Yeah, I would have to give a lot of credit to my high school band director, Jeff Tower, who passed away last year. He was a wonderful musician himself, a professional musician, and he played with people like Frank Sinatra and was on the road quite a bit. And he taught high school bands, so he did both things really well. And when I was getting ready to select my major in college, I asked him, should I do saxophone or piano? Because I equally enjoy playing both instruments. Mm-hmm. And he's the one that said, if you focus on the saxophone, you'll have a great career. Because you can still play piano on the side, but saxophone will open up more doors for you. You can play jazz, Latin, pop, classical, everything, all the styles on the saxophone. It's a very commercial instrument, and you have a lot to offer with it. So I took his advice, and I went to USC, and from there, everything just kind of fell into place. So I really do want to give him a lot of credit for that.
Were you close to him before his passing? Did you get a chance to hang out with him in your later years? Did he see your success?
Yeah, of course. I kept in touch with him throughout, my entire professional career. He would come out to a lot of my concerts. And also, he was a mentor and a friend. So I was just so fortunate to have him as a teacher.
And Jessy, I'm curious to find out also, because I know my own answers, but, was there a song or a style of music with you growing up in your informative years, in your impressionable years of growing up in music, that you listened to, you loved to play, that you said, I really like that song, or I want to create music like this song? And what song was that?
Yes. When I was 15 years old, I heard a recording of Cannonball Adderley with Sergio Mendes in Brazil 66. Mm-hmm. And they were playing the song Groovy Samba. And
yes,
that song, I fell in love with it. You know that song? Yeah, I love that song because it incorporates all the Latin rhythms that I grew up listening to. My dad is from Mexico. And then it also incorporated the saxophone as the main sound. So all of the melody notes were played on the sax and everything else was supporting that. And since I love the saxophone and I love Latin music, it made a lot of sense to me that would be my career path, would be something similar to that, Latin, jazz. And then it was also very happy sounding, like had a lot of joy. Cannonball Adderley's sound has a lot of gospel edge to it. So I wanted to recreate something similar to that with my own project.
And Jess, I'm calling you Jess. My good friend is Jessica, and I call her Jess. So if I sit there and say Jess, forgive me. Would you consider yourself in the vein of people who are not fans of yours yet? A tenor, alto, soprano, sax player. What is your main axe in the sax? Viol.
Well, right now my main instrument is tenor, but
really?
Growing up it was alto. Yeah, so I switched between the two. But for now, all of my CDs have been recorded on the tenor saxophone.
And being, I don't want to use the word multi-instrumentalist, but again, playing piano and playing sax and the various woodwinds in that genre of music, is there technology today that hampers or actually adds to your creative juices, if you will, when you're in the studio?
Yeah, when I'm in the studio, I would say as a practice tool, all of the technological advances have helped a lot. So all of the ways we can practice with people online or learn songs from recordings and then, the amazing slowdowner, all those things that you can use now to transcribe, I think are great learning tools. As far as the studio goes, I like to keep it as authentic as possible.
Sure.
So I try not to do too much tweaking after the song has been recorded. And that's something that I actually learned from Joe Sample. I worked with him on my 2011 release, Hot Sauce. And he wanted to just play the song from top to bottom with no punching in, no fixing. It was just like, play it the best you can. We would just keep doing that. And so it was right.
And working with Joe, I've had the pleasure of working with Joe over the years and did a great song with Michael Paulo, a mutual friend, a song called Sample Joe. In fact, I just finished Michael's new album and kind of giving us a teaser out there. Myself, along with David Benoit and Jeff Lorber and so on, we graced this first album that Michael's done in 10 years. He's so busy promoting concerts that his fans worldwide said, why don't you go back and get yourself back in the studio? And we did that. I have a question. Being a female, not me, you, what struggle or struggles have you faced in this industry, not as a saxophonist, but as a female saxophonist? What struggles?
Well, I think there's still a lot of stereotypes out there for female instrumentalists. If people don't know you, then they just assume that you're not as good or something kind of strange. I remember in college, I would go to a lot of gigs and I would be backstage And I would even have like my instrument case with me, and everyone would say, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm playing in the band. So a lot of times people didn't believe me, and it was frustrating. But now, I think that women have proven themselves time and time again that they can do anything that a man can do, and it's not that big of a deal. But there's some like really old fashioned people out there that still think that.
But I mean, again, above and beyond, are there casting couches that you've been facing through your career?
Not now, but when I was first starting out, there was a lot of, people asking me out and weird stuff going on behind the scenes. But I just figured out how to, get around it.
And being a Latina, I'm being Italian, Armenian, we, everything is based around our families. And at least I can speak for myself. I'm going to speak for you too. Where did you grow up? Are you a Southern California girl?
I am. Yes. I was born in Portland, Oregon, and I was raised in Hemet, California, not too far from
my neighbor.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm broadcasting from my studio in Winchester, Temecula, the headquarters. The corporation is the corporate headquarters in the studio is in San Diego, and so when you say Hemet, I mean it's literally right down the street, right on 79, and
exactly.
And growing up that way in the vein of a Latin household, if you will. What music were you listening to? What was inspiring you growing up? You mentioned before the Sergio Mendes and so on and so forth, but what was really, really the song and the style of music that made you pick up sax more than piano, and that made you come up with Tequila Moon as your first instrumental?
Well, my dad really loved Trio Los Panchos, so I grew up listening to that. Mm-hmm. And Celia Cruz, salsa, everything you could think of. And then we did listen to a lot of Sergio Mendes, but it wasn't until the third grade that I started getting into jazz music, and that was kind of on my own because my music teacher asked me to play the alto. I really wanted to play the flute, but he said, everyone's playing that instrument already. We need someone to take on the saxophone spot. So I agreed to do it. And then I asked him, how can I listen to saxophone music? I wanted to check it out. And he's the one that said, listen to Charlie Parker, who plays the alto saxophone. So I go home, listen to Charlie Parker. I'm like, man, this is so cool. What is it? It's jazz improvisation. I started learning more about that style of music. I even joined an elementary jazz band, which they had in Hemet, which, has a great music program. So at a young age, I started listening to jazz, but that was more on my own. My parents had more of like the Latin sound at their house. So it was kind of a cross between the two. And then, of course, I loved pop music as well. So I think Tequila Moon is a cross between, you could even say Trio Los Panchos because it has a lot of guitar in it.
Of course.
And then, some Cannonball, some Charlie Parker, a little, Grover, all of that stuff mixed in. And then you have the pop sound on top of it, which is the commercial aspect.
Hey, Jessy, answer this question. Was there ever a time in your career, let's say, that where you were just starting, your fledgling career, all of a sudden, you've overcome the objective of being a female saxophonist, but was there ever a time that you found yourself by yourself thinking that, hey, you know what, this just might not be the road I want to travel? Was there ever that mode, or were you always steadfast you were going to be a ride or die girl when it came to saxophone?
Yeah, for me, there was no fallback plan. A lot of people say, what are you going to do in case you don't make it? Right. I just kept saying, there's no question. I'm going to make it. I'm going to be a professional musician. That's all I've ever wanted to do. So I just kind of took that and did my best with it.
And were your mom and dad, were they always supportive, if you will, on your decision of becoming a working musician? Was there ever a point where mom and dad sat down and said, Mija, let's talk about a fallback? Was it their concern, or did they have the firm belief that you were going to make it all the time, period, as a saxophone player?
Well, my dad was always supportive of me, 100%. He was do whatever makes you happy. My mom is more of the analytical type of person, and she was like, maybe you should change your career now. Maybe you should think about a different major in college. She was always asking me to change my mind. So she was the one person that was scared that it wouldn't happen. But I just had a lot of faith and a lot of, I guess tenacity is the word, because I wanted to keep trying and trying and trying and trying. So I just never gave up.
You know, one of my favorite songs by you is a song called Más que Nada. And I'm really familiar with that tune because I had the benefit and the pleasure of interviewing Al Jarreau. And when Al and I sat down, I know actually we recorded the interview in my home here in Winchester. It was DZ4. And so we hung out for 3.5 hours. And unfortunately, I get no joy from this, but we were the last interview that Al ever did before his untimely passing. And if you ever had the opportunity to meet this man and to play with this man, and just even though I didn't get a chance to walk through his gallery, if you will, of musicians, all my dear friends who work with him, and speaking of the aforementioned Michael Paulo, which, cut his teeth with Al. And were you ever a fan of that style of music in the way of, I don't want to use Latin jazz, but kind of like that hip-hop jazz, groovy jazz? Are you ever finding yourself experimenting with that at all?
I have experimented with that. A lot of things that I try out are usually in rehearsals with my band, where we'll try out different sounds and different arrangements and songs. And we even do a lot of songs that don't make the album. So when I'm starting off, we'll try like 10 songs and they're not good. So we just move on until we find the sound that works the best. But I do like listening to all different sounds, and I'm a huge fan of Al Jarreau as well, and his singing and his Latin style.
And Jessy, what is your writing process? When you sit down, are you a person who plays it on piano, plays it on sax, plays it in your mind? Can you share with us what you sit down and what you do to prepare for each song in general?
Sure. A lot of it comes from the piano, since it was my first instrument and has all the chords right there. So it's easier for me to compose sitting there at the piano. And I usually take to it if there's something going on in my life that I want to express in a song, or like if there's a special moment that I want to remember. It's a good way to capture it with music. A lot of times it's just like, okay, I have to work on this arrangement for my concert next week. So there's deadlines too that make it happen. And I would just want to keep writing music for the fans also. I don't want to, just lay back and get lazy. Sure. I want to continue pushing myself and for them to enjoy the new sounds that we're making with the band, because there's been some cool stuff happening lately.
And I want to take a chance while it's in front of me also to congratulate you on the cover of Inland Empire magazine. I mean, speaking of our hometown.
Oh, thank you.
And I love that. I'm looking at it as we speak itself. And what was that, a few months ago? Or is it, give us the timeline when they came to you.
Yeah, well, I've done some work with them previously when I did Thornton Winery. They had an article. And then when my Christmas album came out, they had another article. And coming up, they were closing off the year, and they're saying, we're getting ready to promote the best of. And we want to use you for the cover. So that was probably at the end of last year, maybe December of 2017. And I was so happy because it's a big honor.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, we're not going to lie to you, but I was reading that when I was going in for my sinus surgery for about 2 months ago in my doctor's office, Dr. Ricardo Ruiz, thank you, another Latino in the business that took care of me. But I got a chance to read it, and I'm out of curiosity. In fact, a lot of the guys in the studio wanted to find this also. Find out about, are you ever compared to or another female artist like Candy Dulfer herself, or are you a standalone musician that you've broken out of that label of another female saxophonist?
Yeah, I think I've broken out, and a lot of it has to do with writing my own music and producing it. So it sounds really different than everyone else. I think that's a key point in having your own thumbprint or fingerprint in the music industry. Sure. But a lot of people, when I do my shows, it's mainly just my band doing the show, which I like as well. As I've done packages in the past, which are great, but you don't really get to highlight your music because you're playing everyone's music, and it's like four people for 1 hour.
Well, right, like when you're saying packages like the Sax Pack and and Jeff Cashel and Steve Grove and everybody. Oh, Steve Grove, Huge Groove. Let me respond. Let me not give away his real name. But that situation itself, have you ever been invited to be with a gaggle of guys on stage playing sax?
Yeah, actually, when I first started, I was in guitars and saxes for 2 years, which is an amazing experience, and I loved it so much. And that was great. It was Gerald Albright on the saxophone. Then the following year was Huge Groove. So wonderful musicians that I got a chance to tour with. And then, of course, Jeff Golub, who passed away recently, played guitar. That was kind of like his baby project. It was the guitars and saxes. But I had so much fun doing those events.
You know, and
I wasn't expecting that.
Nobody was. In fact, I hate signing on to Facebook because I call it the obituary section. You know, every time you sign on and it says, you know, it's with heavy heart that we, and then Jeff surprised the hell out of everybody. I mean, anybody's passing when it's before their time. But, you know, I don't want to turn this into a downer. I want to keep it on the upbeat. And I want to talk about when you're in the studio and you're writing and you're inspired, and we'll talk about your inspirations. But what is it that keeps Jessy, that you're maintaining your sound so when they're hearing the sax, they know it's Jessy? But what are you doing to keep yourself away from sounding exactly alike on each album that you release?
Well, each album has a theme, so that makes it easier for me. Tequila Moon was my first project. So that one we were going for a more organic approach. We had a lot of upright bass on a lot of the songs. And then True Love is more of a Latin jazz project. So all of the songs have a pop element. And there's like a Colombian song, there's a Brazilian song, there's there's different styles of songs all over the place. And then we'll fast forward to my Second Chances CD was more of a fusion R&B album. So I worked with artists like Jeff Lorber and Jimmy Haslip on that project. So I try to keep every CD very unique. And this one being a live album, there's 3 new songs in addition to, recapturing the elements of Tequila Moon. So even though it's Tequila Moon, it's a different arrangement and it's a completely different sound because the live sounds are just different. You know how in the studio you can perfect everything, make it totally perfect. And then when you're on the show, you just let it all hang out. And that's kind of how it was for us.
And Jessy, let me ask you a question also too that's important to me. The musicians that play with you, that share the stage with you at Yoshi's or share the stage with you whenever you're playing, what does it take to earn the respect of Jessy J to be asked to be a part of that band?
Oh, I've known these guys for so long. A lot of them I've met at other gigs. So, for example, the drummer that I play with a lot, Yaji Hampton, we met working together with Norman Brown. And I really liked his vibe. I'm like, he would be a great addition to the band. And then the bass player, Frank Abraham, I met him at a jam session, and I really liked his style. He has a unique way of approaching the bass.
Right.
I thought that could really add some unique elements to my music as well. So I kind of handpicked everyone for their different playing, and then Norman Jackson on the keyboard. The reason I like working with him is he comes from a Latin background, so he has all the montunos and all that stuff down pat.
Absolutely.
So he can throw it in at any second, and it sounds great. So they're good guys as well as being awesome musicians, and that's important to me as well. You know, being on time, being, respecting the music, doing your homework, all of that stuff is important, and they all do that. So we've been having so much fun.
And let's talk about you being Latino. Let's talk about you talking about montunos and momoños and the like in the way of Latin music. I don't know the drummer that you're talking about personally, but when you're up on stage and you're performing, now forgive me for being a percussionist, but how do you, with respect of the fact of budget, of course, obviously, if you would have a full band, a large band, if money was no object, but what is keeping you? I don't want to sound like I'm looking for a gig, because I'm not. But what keeps you from hiring the mass percussionists that are in the industry that can only add to the benefit of your music? The Ray Islases, the Jackie Bertonis, the Lenny Castros. What keeps you away from keeping percussion on stage?
Well, it just does depend on the show. So, for example, Yoshi's, the stage is really small. Small, exactly. And for the videotaping purposes, we obviously didn't have any space for that show. But when I do my local shows like Bagatini's here in Seal Beach, I always have a percussionist, either Richie Gajate or
Garcia.
Sometimes Letty Garcia. And then I've enjoyed using percussion throughout my career. So on all my albums, I always have percussion. It's usually Richie because he's been with me from the beginning also. He's
Absolutely.
playing congas on Tequila Moon. And I'm like, man, you're my lucky charm. I kept him for every CD.
Richie's my boy. In fact, I'll send you a cool picture when we get off the line. Me and JR and Richie Gajate Garcia. I always make fun of the word Gajate because when I used to hold Roland, his son, in my arms, and Roland himself has made inruns in this industry where, it's giving a chance to carry on the Gajate name. But I'm curious to find out about that. And you mentioned my friend Letty Garcia. Is Letty the most beautifully blessed spiritual man you've ever met in your life?
Definitely. Letty is awesome.
He's got such a vibe because I knew about Letty when I was doing a lot of work, and I still do a lot of work for a production company in Chicago, and that's where Letty's from. And that's where Letty and I we became buddies over the years, and because monkeys, as we refer to ourselves as percussionists, we all kind of we keep ourselves in a cool, tight circle. That I'm glad that you're employing my boys, because I can only imagine what it must be like when you're at Spags, and what it must sound like with them playing. But I'm looking at the time now; it's going by so quick. In the last 2 minutes, I want to find out from you. You mentioned a second ago about inspirations and being inspired. Was there ever I don't want to say a sad point of your life or even a happy point of your life that's made you sit down and write a tune that you're most happy with for inspiration purposes? And what song was that?
Of course. Yeah, all of my songs are inspired. One of my more recent originals is entitled Minnie's Bounce, and it's about my dog, Minnie, that passed away last summer. So the song incorporates her personality, because she was really playful, and when she walked, she always stopped to look at everything and smell and chase squirrels, and she had a huge personality. But the song starts off a little bit sad, and then once it picks up, you hear the bounce in the music because it has a cool swing feel to it, and it's also blues, which makes it 1960s style. But that's one of my favorite new songs. I've been playing it live. I haven't recorded it yet because it's not to that level where I want it to be for the recording. But I do it in my live show, and it's a great song in her memory.
I'm a dog lover immensely, and so I don't know how you can play that song without shedding tears, because when our babies, successfully cross the Rainbow Bridge, don't get me going on that. It's a true inspiration. What's even more inspirational is that the fact that you took my invite and you're on my show, and I really, really appreciate that, and I can't wait to get a chance to see you live. And I'm definitely going to make it a point so the whole crew from the studio comes out and gets a chance to experience Jessy J more than just on the radio. So with that said, Jessy, when we come back on this last segment, the last half hour of our 1 hour interview, we're going to talk more about how we can stalk you in the professional way, where we can get your music we talked about before, and we're going to share your URLs and your social media, which is most important, because we had to figure out how we're going to monetize what we do and keep people from stealing our music. So with that said, you guys, Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Media, connect to all things music, and our in-studio guest today, Jessy J. Jessy, don't go anywhere. Listening audience worldwide, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
Hey, this is Brian Culbertson, and you're listening to my dude, Jackie Bertoni, on Jackie's Groove.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Okay, guys, I want to make sure you understand that is not Jessy J. And this is Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Media. Jessy, I played that song because of our current sponsor, our largest sponsor, who's aptly given me the title of the worldwide ambassador, and that company is called Jambox, JAMBOXX.com. Jessy, I'm going to get more involved in your, if there's any initiatives that you're involved in the way of teaching. But Jambox is a wind instrument that enables pros in general, and especially like my interview last week with Wyclef Jean, who is a big proponent of Jambox. Jessy, Jambox is an amazing wind instrument that looks like a larger harmonica that now gives the hope and benefit for those who have become inflicted with diseases that keep them from playing music, composing music, because they can't use their feet to play the kick drum, or they can't use their hands to hold the guitar or play sax. But the fact of the matter is, now with Jambox, it'll give that benefit and that ability to bring back music into those who lost it. And when you get a chance, Jessy, when we get off, I want you to go to jambox.com, and I want you to be amazed. Get a box of Kleenex also, because when you see paraplegic people with ALS that are now playing music, just like we heard coming in with Jerry Rafferty's Baker Street, played by Eric, they call him Robo Sax, another gentleman that is handicapped but is playing music again. So with that said, I'm going to get off my soapbox. And I want everybody worldwide to look at jambox.com. That's JAMBOXX.com. So with that said, Jessy, it's really amazing. And I wanted to find out more about any initiatives that are involved. But what I want to do is I want to introduce you to the CEO of our network, who is a big fan of yours. And he said to me, can I please come on and say hi? Like I'm going to say no to him. But he wants to say hi to Jessy J. So Jessy, do me a favor. Say hi to Florentino. And Florentino, please say hi to Jessy.
Hey, Jessy. How you doing?
Hey, Florentine. I'm great. How are you?
Awesome. I'm enjoying the interview, and I'm enjoying the fact that you're keeping Jackie off the street so that we're all safe. So yeah, it's we appreciate you joining us here, and that's why we created the network. We want to spotlight the people who are out there with their passion, with their heart for music, that are out there doing it, and so that people that are aspiring to get into this business, or even in this business, looking at what everyone else is doing and how that works within their world. We're able to spotlight the leaders, in which we consider you one of those. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. And by doing that, we always like to take this segment to share with people how. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. It cut out for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, what we would like you to do is share all your social media, all the the ways that we can find out more about Jessy J.
Oh yeah, that's easy. I try to keep my everything the same. So if you go to Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, you can find me at Jessy J Sax. So it's Jessy with the Y and just the letter J, and sax like saxophone.
Awesome. Well, do that, folks. That everyone listening, make sure you go and find out more about Jessy and all that she's doing and her incredible new album that's come out, and that's really cool. I'm from Northern California, so that the fact that you did that at Yoshi's was really cool.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it was a blast, and there's something special about the audience in Oakland, I have to say. That's why I wanted to record it there.
It is. It's a really passionate music community over there. A lot of folks have come out of there from the Escovedos to the Tupac Shakur and one of the folks that I was kind of connected with MC Hammer and that crew. So yeah, we know about Oakland. I was from Sacramento, but we always claim
nice.
Bay Area.
So yeah, the Bay Area. It's one of my favorite places.
It is. It's a beautiful place. So with that said, I'm not going to commandeer Jackie's show any longer. I'm going to allow you guys to go back on, or actually don't have to. Jackie would take it back from me whenever he felt like it.
Absolutely.
So
all right, brother.
You guys enjoy, and thank you very much again for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so Jessy, I asked you a question a little while ago, and kind of want to bring it back. We always want to be thankful. We want to give back for what we've been blessed with in our careers. But let's talk about the children. Let's talk about the young musicians coming up. Are you involved? Is Jessy J involved in any initiatives that involved ongoing education for the youth? And is there any plan that if you're not, that you plan to get involved in?
Oh, yeah. I'm really involved in the arts community as a mentor, a teacher, and clinician. So I actually just got back from Alaska, where I was working with the entire state of Alaska, all the saxophones. They had this amazing event, the Palmer Jazz Festival, and they bus everyone in from the surrounding. Well, the state is huge, so everyone comes in. And I spent 2 days working with them about jazz. So we talked about everything from saxophone basics to improvising over the blues to what it's like to be a professional musician. And then we conclude the concert is the final thing at the end of the 2 days, where I play original music with the big band. And in this case, sometimes it's a high school big band. In this particular instance, it was all of the high school band directors playing their instruments. So the students got to see their band directors play, and I played a couple of my songs. And it was just a lot of fun, and hopefully inspiring to the young musicians up and coming to know that it is possible to pursue music.
Did you make available a Q&A with the younger set?
I did. Yep. I had a lot of one-on-one time with the students, and they had some cool questions. A lot of times they ask, how much money do you make, or something strange like that. People I always want to know, like, people actually make a living playing music. And the answer is yes, you can. You just have to be smart and know how to make money in the industry.
And let's talk about, side gigs, if you will. I mean, unfortunately, in this industry that you and I are involved in, we have too many of our friends, our associates, that are finding themselves having to take secondary jobs to pay for their apartments or their homes and so on and so forth. Do you think we're ever going to get back? And I want your opinion, because you're in between my age, but you've been in the business long enough to understand that things are changing on the daily, and not necessarily for the positive. And we'll get back to the positive, but I want to find out what it is that Jessy does to protect her music from prying eyes, from trolls, and from people looking to steal your music, period.
Well, I just make sure to license it on ASCAP and then also copyright it as well.
Right.
And I have a great entertainment attorney that helps advise me on things to do.
Beautiful.
But overall, I mean, the more music you have, the better it is. So I try to keep that perspective, and as to writing as much as possible and arranging and just, being busy on both sides, not only performing, but also the other side, which is the writing and publishing. And then just being diligent with the other companies that they are, like Sound Exchange and all the other organizations that are there to safeguard musicians. and their investments. I'm a big part and supporter of those. But for the young people coming up, I know sometimes you just have to release something just to do it, but make sure you're reading the contract and you understand all the terms, because it could be, a big deal for you later on.
Yeah, because in this industry, I'm sorry, I'm choking on my own guilt here itself. When we talk about keeping ourselves aligned and keeping ourselves protected, excuse me, it's more difficult today than it was yesterday. The fact, even with a great attorney, even with ASCAP or BMI or any kind of people who own your publishing or protect your publishing, what is it that you do to employ, honesty in the industry? Because it's a very, very, very dishonest industry that you and I are involved in. Not in the way of people, but promoters and so on and so forth. How do you protect your pocketbook from being ripped off?
Well, all you can really do is, do the best that you can, be prepared, have good people around you that can help you when you come into a situation. But for the most part, there's bad people out there and they're going to do what they're going to do. And all you can try is just to avoid, if you know that there's someone particularly shady, not work with them. Or if you think something's going to go down with a certain performance or song, just make sure you're there and you're keeping track of everything so nothing slips through the cracks.
And just let me ask you this question. You've been blessed. Obviously, your talents kept you there. But coming up in the industry itself and working your butt off, for the lack of a better word, and keeping you on the forefront and keeping you in the eyes of the public and keeping everything fresh and real, does Jessy J have a bucket list that you are willing to share with us?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of places that I want to visit. I love traveling. So I've been almost everywhere except for Australia and Antarctica. So on my bucket list is a cruise to South America, and from there to continue on to Antarctica. And then just another vacation to Australia and New Zealand, just to say I've been to all the continents. So that's exciting. And musically, there's a lot of people that I want to play with still that I haven't played with. One of them is Carlos Santana. I would love to play with him. And so the list is pretty long about the musicians that I want to work with. But I'm trying to just stay focused on one thing at a time. So finishing this album, having a live album was always on my bucket list as well. And then I've played on several Grammy-nominated albums, but I would love for one of my projects to be Grammy-nominated as well. That's definitely high on the bucket list.
I do want to tell you, I want to interrupt you there because you mentioned Carlos, and he's a personal friend, but Carlos just got rid of his horn section. He just fired his horn section after all these years. After, Carlos will wake up one day and he will fire himself. And that it's a given. And my buddy Ray Green, who comes from Tower of Power, who was the lead vocalist with Tower for 2 years, and he made his way and he made his journey onto the stages with Santana, and he's actually playing trombone, so he's doubling up trombone with Dave Matthews on keyboards. Kind of not getting the same vibe of a horn, but never ever, because with Carlos's wife, Cindy Blackman, on drums, there could be room for another woman on stage. You never say never. And but again, too, just kind of read between the lines on that one, and we can talk more about that offline. I do want to find out one thing. If you could, and I'm not being goofy here, but if you can turn back time, for the lack of a better word, we talked about your bucket list, but if you could morph yourself onto a stage with anybody that's left this godly place called Earth to a better abyss out there, who would that artist be with that Jessy would find herself on stage with, blowing out crazy?
Probably the Miles Davis Quintet with everyone, when he was doing the Something Else album with Cannonball, all those guys. I would love to just have been on stage to hear it.
Are you, forgive me for being blatant, but do you feel that your talent would keep you on that stage with those guys playing at that ability, at that level?
Yeah. All the songs on Something Else, I've spent years performing, and I know those songs inside and out. At the time, it was all brand new music, and it was so groundbreaking. But at this point, they're well-known classics, and I would love to just jam out with them.
I love that term, jam out, because the bottom line is when you sit down in a room full of great players, like let's say, for instance, I'm going to ask you a question. It's almost like asking the question I ask this every interview, like who's your favorite child? But when it comes to saxophonists that are out right now that are making inruns, the Dave Causes, the Richard Elliott's, the huge grooves and so on, and you can be honest, but who is someone that you really find yourself listening to while you're cruising in your car and above and beyond yourself?
Well, the saxophonist that I love listening to is Kenny Garrett. He's more of a straight-ahead jazz player, but he does crossover into pop. And I just love his sound and his vibe and the way he improvises. And I also really enjoy listening to Chris Potter. So they're more on the modern jazz side of things, but that's who I listen to when I'm not doing my thing.
Have you been to a show lately, live show of a player's? And the reason why I say this is, with David Sanborn. He is 73 years old now, and he's still killing it. Are you a fan of his at all? Because he's coming on our show hopefully in the next 60 days. And out there, is there a song that is out there in the way of saxophone that's made it commercially that you wished your name was on, other than the artist that made it famous? Is there a song out there you want to share with us?
Probably one of the most famous saxophone songs, Mr. Magic. I mean, everyone plays it. Everyone loves it. Grover was one of my favorite saxophone players. It's a very cool song.
And Jessy, has music technology changed what you do?
It has in a lot of ways, especially when I'm on groups that are touring. I notice that the keyboards kind of play everything now. We play the strings, we play the horns. It kind of eliminates a lot of musicians on stage, which is unfortunate because, saxophones and horn sections, having a live section is so different than having a section in the horns. It's like just on the keyboard, totally different sound. You don't get the interaction. You don't get the grit or, the really high notes. You don't get the dynamics. There's a lot missing now. I think in technology is great. It's also taken away from the live element.
Now, when you're in the studio recording, are you in a main studio, or are you, like me, are you a slave, and I mean that as a positive term, to Pro Tools or Logic?
No, I'm not a slave to Pro Tools and Logic.
So you get in the studio and you do it like it was meant to be originally?
Yes.
And are you a one-take girl?
The only effects I use on my saxophone, which I really like, is reverb, and that's something that I would use in a live show anyways.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But as far as like auto-tune and all of that stuff, I mean, maybe if there's one note that's really off, but I find that auto-tune makes it sound more like a computer than a person on the instruments. I've tried it. I've experimented with it, and I always end up taking it off because I don't like the way it sounds. So for me in general, I like to keep things natural. And I think people like listening to things that are natural, too. I agree.
And especially with your producer. I mean, when's the last time, and I'm going to kind of throw it out there, that you worked with Paul? Did Paul work on the live stuff, or is he strictly in the way of recorded music?
Yeah.
Studio music.
I worked with Paul on my first 3 CDs. So 2008, 2009, and 2011. Then after that, I self-produced my last couple albums.
Good for you.
So Second Chances, Thank You, My One and Only One, California Christmas, and the Live at Yoshi's. Yes, I produced myself. I do have one song that I did with Paul on my last album, and that's called All I Want. That's the MP3 track that I sent to you. And it's a studio cut, so it's not a live. It's just a studio version. And that's the bonus track it's the 12th song of my new CD.
Isn't he a great guy, Paul? And the reason why I say that is because he produced Michael Paula's new album. And and when they sent the song to me, kind of got a teaser, I redid Elton John's Your Song, and David Benoit played keyboards on it. And so when Paul called me and he said, "Hey, Michael wants you to play all color on this track." And so I loaded up more. If people who know Jackie Bertoni, when I go in the studio, I give you 3 times the amount of percussion that you hired me for, and then you can move it around as such. Did you find working with Paul Brown or working with a producer other than Jessy J was easier for you, or is it more, how do I say this? Are you hard on yourself in the studio? When you step off of sax and into the role of producer, is that something you love to do, or is that bothersome? Do you piss yourself off? Or are you happy with the turnout?
Well, for me, it's easier to have a producer because they're listening to your saxophone performance, giving you suggestions, and it's like having a second set of ears. When you produce in yourself, there's so many things that could happen, and you may not notice it until later. But the thing that I like about producing is that I'm constantly learning. I'm learning about recording the instrument, as from an engineer standpoint. I'm learning about the mix. I just get more deeply involved in the project when I'm producing it, and it gives me a better connection to the sound, and I really enjoy it. I'm enjoying producing.
Well, now, when you're producing your own music itself, and there's going to be a time that you're going to be asked, if not already, to produce other people's albums, but when you're producing it in a beginning stage of being a self-producer, are you employing or asking outside sources for advice when you produce your own music?
No, I mean, it was a big step to move to self-producing, but my former manager who passed away, Stuart Coxhead, he's the one that told me, what sounds good. Just trust your instincts. And I just go with that because I know it sounds good. And what sounds good to me will most likely sound good to other people.
Thank you for saying that also. Thank you for saying that, because if I got $1 for every time someone said, hey, Jackie, how does this sound? And my response back to them in my older, long in the tooth age, I'll say, how does it sound to you? How does it feel to play? It's like when you work with salsa and salseros, and it's supposed to play only a certain pattern. And people are afraid to step out of that or play something different or make something their own. I use that term, and I thank you for using that. You go with your gut instinct, and what feels good and what sounds good is what's going to be good. And if we sat there and listened to everybody every day of the week saying, I don't know if it should be played this way, or I don't know, well, then guess what? Get your own band, get your own music, get your own show. Now, if all the inspirations that you have and being on the cusp of the 10th anniversary at Yoshi's, is there enough music in your wheelhouse that you're ready for a studio album? And how far away is that studio album for your fans out there? Do you want to share with us?
I'm probably going to do a studio album in 2 years. So Yoshi's will be this year. And then following year, I'll have a new album of brand new songs for everyone.
Now, when you say brand new, is it going to take you 2 years to write that music, or is it going to take you 2 years to produce it the way it is meant to be produced?
It really just takes a matter of months to write and record the music. For me, it's pretty fast moving. It's just getting into that state of like, okay, I'm going to clear off this month and do nothing but record and focus on this recording. It takes a lot of energy, more so than time for me, because I do it all. Since I'm in the studio, I can record a whole album in 2 days. We do 4 songs and then 5 songs or something like that. Yeah, so that part doesn't take too long. It's just the energy of putting yourself out there. And right now, this Yoshi's album, like we recorded it literally in 1.5 hours.
Are you happy?
CD was done.
Are you happy with the turnout?
Yeah, I love the way it sounds. And it's a completely different perspective for the fans, so they're going to love it too. And there's a lot of great energy coming from the band members as well, and the audience. You can feel the audience throughout the songs. And every time I listen to the radio and I hear live albums, I'm like, that's so cool. I want to do that one day. And this was my opportunity, the 10-year anniversary.
Was there any glitches at all that were involved that you want to share with us, or did everything go smooth as silk?
Everything was cool. I mean, there was one part when I was playing Minnie's Bounce, that new song I was telling you about, didn't make the album because I switched microphones from tenor to alto, and the microphone placement wasn't in the sweet spot. Because on the saxophone, you really need to get in the center of the bell with the mic pointing downwards. I use a wireless microphone, and I kind of just did it so quickly. I switched it around, and the mic was just a little off. And I kept thinking, man, if that microphone would have had a good placement, I would have spent just like 2 more minutes getting that perfect. But it's okay. Hear it? It's a live album, and you learn. You can hear it, but you could hear it. It was picked up in all the other mics, like the drum mic and the all the open mics on stage. But it just wasn't how I wanted it to sound. So I'm like, I could release it, but I'm going to wait and record it on my next album.
I love it. You can bake it up for it. And Jess, let me ask you this question right now. I want you to hear the quintessential violin player in the background and this melancholy thing. So I'm going to turn it into a Barbara Walters moment. And I'm saying this tongue in cheek because I find it to be really interesting. When I ask this question, I don't care who I've asked it to. The outcome is amazing. But if you could sit back right now and talk to a young Jessy J, the younger Jessy J, what would you tell her about the process of the industry? What would you change that if you had the power to change right now or to instill that belief in that younger Jessy, what would that be?
I would just tell that, the younger version, just to believe in yourself no matter what, because when you're coming up, there's going to be a lot of people telling you what to do and how to do it. But just like we talked about earlier, trust your instincts and just stay true to yourself. That's the most important thing.
And when it's time for Jessy to step off this earth, what's the one thing that you would leave as advice, a lesson, or maybe even a legacy?
Well, hopefully people will be able to enjoy the music for many, many years after I'm gone. But my main thing is that music is love. God is love. Music is love. If people can feel that through the music, then I feel like I've done my job. So that's important to me.
And the takeaway, let's go back to Yoshi's for a second in this last 2 minutes. When you said goodnight, thank you for coming, drive home safe, whatever your sign off is to your audience, what is it that you want every audience to take away with them when they just got done listening to Jessy J? What's the takeaway?
I just want them to have a good time, to forget about all their problems. There's always something to worry about. But in that 1.5 hours or they're at the show, I just want them to forget about everything else and just, fall in love with the music and dance in their seat and clap and whatever makes them happy. But just to get to that place that makes them really full of joy.
I asked that because I think about the aforementioned Al Jarreau. And Al said at the age of 76, when he walks on stage or when he hobbles on stage, he goes, Jackie, I have the voice of a 25-year-old, but I have the body of an 80-year-old. He goes, and I'm suffering what is called mutiny on the body. And we're laughing, of course, but he said something that was prolific to me. He said, it doesn't matter how slow I walk onto the stage, my audience is there to wait for me. And the whole thing is when you have a true fan base like Jessy J has, or like the Al Jarreaus have, whatever it may be, your audience is going to listen to you. They're going to revel in you. And a true fan is going to have the ability to say what he or she wants to do to better your career. It's up to you to take the advice or to turn the advice down, but also welcome at the fact that they are part of your legacy. And what's part of the legacy now is that Jessy J has become part of Jackie's Groove. And I appreciate that like you have no idea. And when we get off of the radio, when we sign off, would you do me a favor? Would you hold on for a second? And would you give me a radio drop like Brian Culbertson and Michael McDonald and everybody else has by saying a little something for Jackie's Groove? I'd really, really appreciate it. I don't have a female other than Talia Trigueros, who does my voiceover for the show entry. So with that said, I want everybody to thank Jessy J for this gracing the stages of Jackie's Groove. I'm brought to you by Intertalk Media, your connection to all things music. Jessy, thank you so much for being part of the situation.
Thank you,
we wish
Jackie. It was
Godspeed, girl.
Wonderful talking to you.
We love you, man. And as I say with all my broadcasts, peace through music. We'll talk to you soon.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.